Welcome to our brand new feature on the Powder Coater podcast called In the News with Kim and Jim. Get ready for a fast-paced discussion on topics including coatings news, industry trends, climate initiatives, the right to repair, innovations, and more. Join me along with my co-host, Jim Kunkel, as we bring you what you need to know and maybe some of what you don't. Stay relevant in your business and stay tuned for our brand new Power Hour, where the temperature rises and every minute counts. Welcome back to the show. Jim, how's your day going?
Hey, it's great. It's coming up on the weekend, and I'm so glad to be here and on the doorstep of the weekend.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And we're kind of messing around today with our music. We got lots of buttons on this program, and sometimes you just need to experiment. And it's a new show. So, Jim and I were just saying, we need some background music while we're talking about these articles and stuff. So this is our second show, and we're trying to do these every month. And I'm telling you, like, the stuff we're going to talk about today, I don't even know if we can get through it all, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of hot topic buttons and articles that you chose, I chose. I'm really excited to get going. But before we do, I just want to say, shout out to our fans and favorites out there, our cheerleaders. We got top downloads on this episode the first week, and we had over 100 downloads between all channels, at least the two main channels. I know there's other places people will download, and I just don't, you can't, it's very hard to see how many people download your show, but I was totally encouraged and blown away. Weren't you, Jim?
Yeah, it's kind of like bake it and forget about it. It's just amazing to see how organically it grew. And, before we started this broadcast, Kim and I were talking, and I had mentioned that a lot of people reached out to me and said, "Hey, Jim, I see you got a new program." And I said, all the credit's on Kim. But, In the News is starting off real well, and we appreciate all the support. And also we look forward to everyone also participating by, giving us some ideas, or, maybe there's certain topics that we need to focus on to do specials like right to repair. That's real hot. In fact, I even have another article on right to repair in relationship to Europe. So.
Yes, I hope we have time to talk about that one. That was kind of surprising to me when I put it up in the banner and stuff. So let's get the show going, huh? Anyways, the Biden-Harris administration finalizes ban on the most uses of methylene chloride, protecting workers and communities from fatal exposure. This was not unanticipated news from the chemical companies. They were kind of expecting to hear about this announcement and this final decision. What happens next is anybody's guess. There are some big companies that are chemical companies that are going to actually fight back. But I want to give you a quick overview of this, and then I want to share a clip because what they're basing this on is some data and research that was done back in the 80s and 90s. And they were testing mice, and through the years, this chemical's been out since the 40s. Eastman Kodak did their own research 2 times, one in the 40s and 50s, and one in the 80s. So basically, what's happened is that the testing that they did was on animal testing, and they found that there was no effects or harmful effects on humans. So that led to OSHA rulings that the chemical was safe to use in the proper setting and safety standards set by OSHA. And now they're coming at them again because this is all based around these bathtub refinishers. And one guy did die back in 2017, and that kind of got the EPA looking at this chemical again. Now, in this article, if you go down further here, this is where they're talking about the guy that died. To date, since 1980, 88 people have died. 53 of them have been in the bathtub refinishing industry, but the rest of them have, bought this off the shelf and done something. They're DIYers. They did something at home, and that caused their demise. I'm not trying to minimize how many people, the number of people. Anybody losing a life over chemical exposure is never a good thing. But, what the EPA is trying to do is to lower the ratings, exposure ratings. As you'll hear from our guest, Valerie, here in a minute. All of our links will be in the podcast description, but it's for you to read. But I want to share with you what Benco had to say about this particular article here. A company and a business industry that relies on this can survive on, right? And have available to them and not be so restricted from it. So,
well, we want it available, but we also want everyone to know that we're fighting for the levels that we know are safe. Mm-hmm. And the safe levels that were dictated with OSHA were proven to be safe with no incidents, reported incidents of cancer and things like that. It was a worker safe situation. And now that they're trying to lower the exposure limit to make it more difficult for all of us to do business, it doesn't make sense when it's safe where it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, if it weren't safe where it was, if it weren't safe at this level now, I wouldn't be fighting to this whole thing, because they're lowering it to such a prohibitive rate when that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Because it's been deemed and studied safe at the current level. This is why we're so involved.
So, Kim, question I have for you, is this rule final, or is it still open for public and industry commentary before it becomes officially a regulation?
Filing. It's not a filing, it's a ruling, is what they're calling it. So the bottom line is that everyone's going to have at least a year or more to continue to buy and use the product. So there's no rush, like I asked her if there was, are you going to start charging higher prices, whatever, and she's like, no, everything's going to stay the same, but we are going to push towards,
it'll be a lawsuit.
Some kind of legal action. Yeah, so this is what they're fighting. Is the OSHA standards were set a long time ago, back in the 90s, because it's based on all of these, all this research. The key thing that they're basing it on is Eastman Kodak, and all that research. But there were other research projects done later on that included 6 factories around the country, including like an aircraft stripping, like remember TWA, that airline carrier that got bought out. They tested their facilities around this chemical and measured each person that worked in that factory's level of exposure, whether they were in the office or working directly with the product, product. And actually, Benco's former owner and who basically started the company was a chemist, and he's the one that helped mandate or set up the OSHA standards to begin with.
Okay.
So in the following years, since 2017, when this gentleman in this article passed away, the whole thing kind of got stirred up again. And the response from the chemical companies to the EPA is, look, we're going to take this off the shelf in Home Depot and all these places, right? So you can't have the DIY guys get to it.
Yeah.
And solve that problem. And then on top of that, we're going to require EIN numbers and verify businesses that are buying this product from us to make sure that they have the safety standards, they understand the OSHA standards, they've got it set up properly, and they're using it properly. So, they've already responded in this way. So they're kind of confused, or kind of a little, what they're probably going to end up doing is fighting it and filing a lawsuit in order to get this kind of talked about more. So that's pretty much what is happening next. Most of the toxic levels that were described in the article is that they were testing on animals, but the results were that there were no harmful effects to humans from that research. So there's two kinds of research things they're talking about: animal testing, which of course on mice and rats and all of that, they have difference. They're similar to humans, but they're different, right? And so that research didn't really apply to the toxic levels that these animals were, didn't apply. And they found, and this is based on the Eastman Kodak research, that it didn't affect humans in the same way it affected the animals. That the liver and the cancers in the lungs did not happen in humans like they did. So it was not correlating, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
And everything's everything based on what the current OSHA regulations were set at. The other thing, too, different today than back in the 1980s, is we have a thing called humanized mice, where they have genetically designed mice now for laboratory testing that have more closer traits to humans. So it's a more one-on-one type of scenario. The other question, and I would have, and I don't know much about the subject, but I'm very aware of when things like these rules and permissible levels change, is that this is a existing chemical compound that's been on the market for a long time. Is there competitors with a newer technology that put pressure by lobbying to get the permission lowered so that they have a entry into it versus an older, more cost-effective way of doing this? That I would be very interested to find out. Is there been pressure from someone out on the outside looking to try to disrupt that?
I don't think it's coming from the outside. I think it's actually coming from the inside. So, for instance, Benco has another product called E-Strip. Okay, it's called B17E. And we actually have that product here at our shop and have been using it now for over a year. It's a chemical dip tank that has it's heated to like 200 degrees. And this is an alkaline based strip. And it versus the acid stripping of the B17. Now, I just want to preface that. And you can, I'm going to link in the description the whole interview with her, because she kind of goes into some of the more finer details to B17 and the Benco or the methylene chloride. But she wanted to let everyone know that this is a blended product coming from Benco. So it's not straight up just methylene chloride. It's a blended product to help strip paint off of automotive parts or anything, really. I mean, you can pretty much strip anything with it. We primarily use it for metal stripping to restore parts and anything metal here at the shop for powder coating. And there are a lot of, going to be a lot of affected businesses that if we don't get that, it's going to change the way they do business. So my thought in the business is, let's start working at promoting this E-Strip tank, the alkaline based strippers more, and we've really reduced how much we use that B17 methylene chloride now, and I just want to prep one more thing to, just kind of that kind of came out of the interview yesterday is, like when you're exposed to that chemical, you're going to automatically reduce, your exposure immediately if you're not feeling, if something's happening to your skin and it's burning or, so it's kind of like, I don't know, the dog chasing the tail kind of thing, like it doesn't make sense. But anyways, that's what I wanted to share today about this Biden-Harris administration EPA announcement. Jim, you're up next, and you've got something about Axel Nobel. And see how I got confused about the blue?
I could see. Yeah. Yeah. For full disclosure, I am a active employee and team member of AkzoNobel in North America. But AkzoNobel has made a significant investment. A lot of our business units have been doing quite well the last number of years, and one specifically in North America is our powder coating. And so, more than 30 million US dollars has been invested by AkzoNobel to install advanced technologies to increase the total manufacturing capability of our 4 powder coating sites in North America. And those locations are in Reading, Pennsylvania, Warsaw, Indiana, Nashville, Tennessee, and Monterrey, Mexico. And really, these enhancements are really looking at the long-term growth of powder coating in North America, but also to globally. We've seen an increase in powder coating and a lot of specialty work that Kim and Ross, where you guys were involved in too. I guess for me, the question I would have for you, this type of an investment by AkzoNobel, how do you feel this will benefit you as a service provider, and then also to how do you think it'll benefit the customers?
Well, that's really an interesting point because, AkzoNobel is large, very, very large. And here they're investing and making it, to not just give back to the customer, but, you figure, can they get any larger, right? And I guess the answer to that question is yes, they can. I think that they are definitely very centered around architectural coatings, and are making moves on other established global leaders, global supply companies. And I think it's great. I don't see why they can't. Just when you think they can't grow any bigger, they do, right? I've used their powders a handful of times. They're not as near, I guess for me, I'd like them a little nearer. But I know that, I think that's kind of one of the biggest problems sometimes with the larger global suppliers is the distribution doesn't necessarily pan out for everyone. Although for the larger buyers and customers, they're readily available. But, that's not just AkzoNobel's issue. It's kind of a global problem for smaller markets, right? To get access to these powders. But I think that's wonderful news.
Yeah. For me, to your point, being in Hawaii, in the state of Hawaii, or for example, I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My first exposure into, let's say, the coatings industry was with coil coating and also powder coating. And at that time, AkzoNobel was a big supplier for both coil coatings and powder coatings. The availability was much easier being based in Pittsburgh. And I can definitely understand, depending on where you're located at. I think with this investment is that the idea is to be able to produce more quantity, have more availability, and then also too, hopefully that will benefit distribution, and also when you're working through third parties, that they are able to go out and promote more of the powder product from AkzoNobel.
It's always good when a global company can respond that way and find ways to make the customer relationship better. So I'm always adhering to that. Now, let's go to my next subject, which is, let me pull it up here first, and I'm not sure how I want to approach this. This is an article dated December 11th, 2023, where they, this affects me personally, but it also affects everyone, especially in America, because, we are now subject to these catastrophes, fire catastrophes, extreme events happening all around the country and around the world, actually. But we found, in December, they announced, this is from the Maui News, and I'm talking about the Maui fires. that everybody that's listening to the show should probably know by now. The toxic elements found in collected ash last month from the fire, they're saying that they've reached some pretty high levels, including arsenic, lead, and antimony. My daughter is actually boots on the ground and is working for one of the contractors that is in charge of testing before and after cleanup of commercial properties that were burned. There were 2,200 properties burned in the town of Lahaina. It is completely wiped away, just in case anybody didn't know. But I wanted to just say that they were detecting these high levels. So that was in December, okay? So they're reporting all of that. But now a new article came out April 16th. Lahaina's wildfire burned so hot that many dangerous contaminants likely vaporized. Now, I'm not sure what to make of this. I mean, on one hand, simply, yes, it could be, the temperatures that were, that they assume had met because of the evidence of melted glass, which, tempered glass even, was incredible. And I can tell you and attest that I've talked to people that have come here for some people are finding things in the ash and they want us to restore them. And I'm hearing personally some of their stories about how things were melted. In fact, I took a call a couple days ago, and this guy had a bin where he was throwing his old wine glasses in, to, I guess, recycle or do something with. I don't know. He just said he had them in the backyard. And do you know that all those bottles melted into one giant chunk of glass?
Wow.
So, yeah. We've restored rims that have had melted glass splattered on them, like either it shattered and broke and fell on the rims, and then it was literally bonded to the rusty old rim, and we couldn't remove it. Even the B17 that we mentioned in the earlier article, and when we went to strip them, that glass was totally bonded to that metal. We couldn't get it off. So we just kind of had to powder coat over it. So I'm confused because they're saying that it could have exceeded 2,700 degrees, and it must have because it melted the glass, right?
Yeah.
So there's a kind of a controversy or a schism in my mind about how they can still find these basic elements and dangerous PFAS but then there's these other things, that most of it was just carbon, just became carbon again, So I don't know what you think about that. I'd really like to know what people think about these two articles, because they seem kind of juxtaposed, or are they just kind of, I don't know, turning the story, trying to web a new thing. I don't know what to think about it, but they're talking about they've done testing in the oceans, and they're saying it's safe for people to go swimming again, that they are recovering. I'm not sure what to think, but what do you think, Jim?
Well, I mean, you got to realize that with less than 2 hours away, we had a rail car last year with, polyvinyl chloride.
Palestine? Is that the Palestine one?
East Palestine, yeah. Actually, it's less than an hour away, really, for me. What they did was they bust open the tankers, drained everything into a ravine that they dug out, and they ignited it. And they said the temperatures were so hot that it would flash burn and there would not be any toxicity out of it. And now they're finding that all the surrounding waterways that were not originally contaminated and ground area where the smoke had blown, there's elements of the chemical that's showing trace levels in soil onto plant and also into the water supply. So again, it's a mixed bag. But those temperatures, that makes sense if they were burning anywhere from 1,000 to 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, that should theoretically, that's incineration. So it should have
It's a
neutralized.
believable story, I
It
guess.
is very believable.
I
And
mean, you want to believe that it just went down to its core elements because it's safer for the people if it did, but then still, like,
Yeah. And I remember the day because, I was home watching in horror of you've had fuel sources. If you think about it, the whole town was a fuel source and the winds were so intense. So that would create high heat because you have a lot of oxygen, you have wind, you have all the fuel sources. It's going to burn extremely hot and fast.
Yeah.
So,
well, there was a lot of things that made that natural disaster a perfect storm, and we don't have to get into all of that, but I do, maybe on the next show I do want to talk about, because this Red Hill stuff is starting to come out, and this is on Oahu now, where 20,000 gallons of jet fuel leaked in a PVC pipe. So last week they finally published the video of the person that took the video, and how it basically gushed for like over a day, 24 hours before they were able to turn it off or whatever. And they said that the Navy kept saying, no, it didn't go into the soil, or it didn't leak into the waterway. But actually they're finding out that people were sick. They could literally smell the fuel in the water when they went to the sink and drank water. They could smell it. And so they now have come to the understanding that about 5,000 of that 20,000 gallons did leak into the water system, the water table, I guess, so to speak, and it can kind of contaminate it from there.
Yeah.
So, that's not a natural disaster, but a human created disaster that could have been avoided and has caused so much. So I'll probably bring that up on our next show, just because it's just starting to kind of come to light in the articles, because it's been so hush hush, like they didn't want to talk about it. The legislators didn't want to talk about it. The Navy, it was just all hush hush. But now that, the news is coming out now about it. So I'll bring that to you guys next time.
Yeah.
So let's go. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say real quick, that's a great topic to cover. Here I live close to the Greater Pittsburgh International Airport, and back in the 90s, when the current airport, we're rebuilding a new airport, by the way, but the current existing structure right now, when they were tearing down the old facility, they had a jet fuel farm for the jet fuel tanks, and corrosion in most of the tanks had caused it to leak jet fuel into the ground. We're talking about at that time back in 94, 93 timeframe. I want to say it cost anywhere from $15 and $20 million in remediation, or whatever they call that, where you're going through and you have to remove all the soil and everything. Yep. It affected the water column. And to your point, people who had well water in and around that part of the airport, some of those people had well water that you could smell jet fuel smell to it. So, but that's a great topic to cover. Yeah. So for the next topic or article that I want to cover is the aspect of right to repair that have been in effect in Europe. And really, this is causing a lot of heartburn for different technology manufacturers. But the Europeans are always a step or two ahead of us here in America. And what they've gone to where we need to be at, which is now they've made it available for spare parts for self-made repairs available to the consumers, not repair shops. Here in the States, we have it set so that it is for the shops only. And so over in Europe, basically to kind of summarize this, it says European Parliament now requires manufacturers to offer timely and cost-effective repair services to consumers, with product repairs receiving a 1-year extension of legal protections. And then the regulation in Europe aims to hold manufacturers accountable for repairing certain products, including smartphones, beyond 1 year, and prevent them from limiting third-party repair options. And as it says here, there are companies like Google, they're collaborating to provide repair parts. But consumers should proceed with caution with any DIY repairs to avoid costly mistakes. But I think that's a good aspect of it, because now what they're doing is they're saying, listen, you can go ahead and get repair done by a shop or a repair shop. But if you want to do it yourself as a DIY, there are a lot of people like to do that. You could go on YouTube and you'll see people that buy the latest iPhone and they will strip it all the way down and then rebuild it back up again. But people are like that. So if you have the ability to change your own battery, or maybe you need a better antenna for reception, to be able to do upgrades yourself with parts and everything like that. So we'll keep definitely updated on what's going on over in Europe. But we're very happy, both Kim and I and many, many thousands of other individuals are happy that Right to Repair here in the United States has taken front and center. And we have a lot of state by state, the laws are changing. And eventually we'll have all the states hopefully in the same position. And then we can pivot to saying, listen, if I want to repair my own phone, when I spend $1,000+ to buy this thing, I own it. Apple doesn't own it anymore. So they shouldn't be telling me what I can and can't do with my own phone.
Yeah. And let's hope maybe there'll be some, ways for, getting you to block your data from Apple, even though Apple says, I own your phone. You know what I mean? And you don't own it. Right.
So Elon the other day had teased about the X phone. And he said, you own it, you can repair it, and you own your own data. So I don't know if he's doing it as a meme or if he's threatening, because there is a little bit of friction going on between Elon and a lot of different major global companies where, go ahead, tempt me, I'll buy Twitter, and he buys Twitter. Don't be shocked if you have an X phone come out that is going to have, it's going to be connected to Starlink, and it's going to have a lot of different features and benefits that you can actually go in and do customization, which is something you can't do on your phones because of different operating systems and things like that, where you're not able to, it's all blocked. You don't have you don't have the open platform to be able to kind of customize your phone by changing how it's programmed.
Yeah, last night I watched Netflix. I think Netflix had a show on the social hackers. They basically were the ones that started 2chan, 4chan, 8chan, and how they, they're nihilists, right? Where they're, ultimately, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
it's a good thing, really.
It got into anonymous and all of that stuff. And, it just kind of gave you a thread of, how it's changed the thoughts of people or the actions of people, and stuff like that. I highly encourage you guys watch that show. Because so much news happens these days, and this is why we have the show, because so much can come and go, and you've been busy at your computer doing something else, or you're, selling some powder, or you're whatever you're doing, right, in your day to day. And you don't catch up with the whole story. And these documentaries are so great, because these hackers, I don't know if they're heroes or if they're anarchists. So there's really a fine line, and it's very hard to determine whether they are or not. Some of them are, and some of them aren't.
Yeah, you need a little bit of anarchy because it helps make a better society. A story that I can tell, an individual I work with who was running an IT department at a corporation I worked at, he actually back in the early 90s was hacking his high school to change grades for his students, fellow students. And then he got into the a couple utility companies, and he played around with his parents' bill, what they would owe on a monthly basis. Eventually he got caught, and part of his penance was that he actually had to work volunteer work for the state of Pennsylvania regarding their IT security. And then from there, he was able to leapfrog, go into college. And he actually went to a university in Washington, D.C. area. And he got involved with the FBI, and he was doing his internship with the FBI. And he got into doing basically computer network security. And it's all from him being a hacker.
The same thing with my kids. One of their friends, he started changing people's grades in high school, did some bad stuff after high school, and now works for the government. Like it's just you can't it just and chances are he'll do something and stop working for the government and then go do something that's anti-government, right? Like
Correct. You want that.
it's so funny, how they can just flip-flop like that, makes them very dangerous. But at the same time, like these global Google and Apple, and I mean, they all want your data, right? But
they sell it to data brokers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what you sign your life away when you have to agree to some long, thing before you accept your iPhone or your Google phone or whatever, right? It's just it's sad that it's come to this, but it's also good. There's some good to it as well. You can do a lot with data, but it's also changing and morphing our society and stuff like that. So that's the kind of the question mark that everybody has. Where's it going to go? How far are we going to go with this? So are we ready for my turn? Is it my turn?
It is your turn.
So this one was a seminar I signed up for, talking about, it's for auto techs, talking about EV hybrids and maintaining them, and what are the opportunities for these techs to make money, on these EVs. Now, I'm going to preface this before I hit to the webinar. I'm going to preface this that isn't the whole thing about EVs that you don't have to replace your batteries every 8 years. Like they're going to guarantee that you don't have any battery issues, and that, the only service, technically the only service is going to be replacement of that batteries at the end of 8 or 10 years, depending on how far you drive or whatever. Okay. So this man here is talking about opportunities in the auto tech industry, and he's going to go into kind of like not a secret, but like an opportunity, that when you own an EV, the minute, just like your phone, when you get your phone, and your phone's, after a while, you've owned your phone for a while, it doesn't charge up to the full, as it gets older, it doesn't fully charge and give you the 4 or 5, so it's kind of like that. So just hear him and what he has to say. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but hold on just a second here. Let me turn this on. And let me know, Jim, if you can't hear it.
Service potentials are. So
I can hear
cars still are going to have tires that need to be replaced. They still have wiper blades. They still have car stuff. So none of that's really leaving. But the big service potential right now centers around the high voltage battery. That's also the most expensive part of a car. I could get really deep and technical as to why that high voltage battery fails, but you can ask all of your customers, or maybe you own an EV yourself, and you ask them, so when your car was brand new and you had a fully charged battery, how many miles did you have on the little indicator on the dash before it was time that you had to charge it again? And whatever that number happened to be, different size batteries and stuff like that are all going to be different. But let's just say it was 300 miles. Within about 6 to 8 months of time, they fully charge that battery again. They don't have that 300 miles of range anymore. And as much of the horror stories that are out there on the internet, that's one that it's actually true. And it's actually kind of favorable for repair shops because they've already done the groundwork. Everybody knows that the high voltage battery is technically the weak link, also the most expensive part. It's something that's, going to wear over time. And nobody wants to get hit with that expensive repair bill of replacing a battery. Depending on the car, it could be anywhere from, as little as a couple $1,000 all the way up to over $20,000. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants that. And, that's another thing to think about. People bring us cars all the time to check them out when they're going to buy them. Well, they expect us to be able to check that battery too, right? So how do we accurately do this stuff? And that whole service of the battery, I call it the modern day tune-up on a vehicle, but that battery is getting out of balance. And that's why they have that lost mile of range. And it will continue to become out of balance. There are built-in balancers on the modules on the car, but they can't keep up with how fast the battery gets out of balance, which is why if the vehicle's got, 2 years of age on it or whatever, they probably went from that magical 300-mile range, as an example, down to maybe 270 miles. And they're starting to get fearful about this. Also, the cooling concept of the battery. Anytime there's air cooling inside the battery, let alone the cooling systems and everything else, all of that requires maintenance as well. But, the actual cooling of the battery with just as simple from an old Prius of a blower motor, well, that needs service too. There's a lot of dust and debris. And if the battery's not getting cooled properly, no matter what vintage of the vehicle you're working on, then it's going to want to fail at a faster rate as well. So there's a lot of new tools that are out on the market. There are battery balancers, battery chargers, discharge.
Well, I think that's enough. I think the point was that you're buying this really expensive car. They're selling you at the lot that you're not going to have to worry about anything. These are, other than changing wiper blades and, that kind of stuff. On the lot, they're telling you one thing, but on the back end, they're saying, and later on in this, he's saying you're going to be the hero because they're going to pay you $1,000 to change this battery out, and you're going to be the hero, and you're going to in 8 years' time, you'll have replaced all those batteries, right? So,
yeah.
I just think it's kind of a scam in the sense that, most people aren't seeing that when they're buying, they're believing this sales front of like, oh, your batteries are going to last 8 years. Well, yeah, you're going to have to replace one every year. That's 8 years. There's 8 batteries or 12 batteries in this thing.
Yeah. I think what everyone has to do is research, because not everyone, a pure EV vehicle is not for everyone in every situation. When he was talking about the replacement of a couple $1,000s, that's more on the electric gas, the newer version of the electric gas hybrids. When you're looking at a Tesla or you're looking at some of the other brands when it comes to EV, you're talking about anywhere from it could be anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000, because you have to change the whole array. You just can't swap out batteries. And think about it. If you have a vehicle that is, you're getting less and less mileage every year because you can't fully charge it, after you have it 3 or 4 years, 5 years, well, there's not going to be a secondary trade-in market for it, because at that time, that battery, instead of being 300 miles, it might be closer to 200 miles. And who's going to want to buy a used EV that's going to cost, maybe then would the price be 10 grand? Maybe does it, nowhere in the world have we seen prices come down. And so I think what's happening is that the current iteration of EVs, we need the next generation, whatever that's going to be, something different in technology, but we're not quite there yet. This is kind of a step, but in the end, I think we're going to have to see a completely different EV type of vehicle than what we currently see with all these lithium batteries in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe Mr. Fusion. Maybe they'll go, Back to the Future, and we'll have a Mr. Fusion where we can shove banana peels in it to create power for the vehicle.
Well, it kind of makes sense on a couple levels. Like, first of all, if I'm comparing today's fuel injected model, right, and the kind of maintenance I have to pay for over the next 8 to 10 years, I'm sorry, but the fuel car wins out now, right? Because most people, when they buy a car, they don't want to have, they'll either get it on a maintenance program and it'll be built into the price, and so they're not paying out technically, they are per month, but it's just a small allotment, right? For that oil change or the tire change. That's what people expect today. They don't expect to do $1,000 drops at a time, right? And he said in the 8 to 10 months, it's not even a full year. So
Yeah.
if you've got 100,000, I don't know how much these Teslas cost, but if you've got 100,000 into it, or upwards of 100,000, you're spending 8,000 over the next 10 years, 8 to 10 years. That's a lot on the maintenance side, and is insurance paying for that? Is it built into the price? Are you getting some kind of maintenance program when you buy a Tesla? I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, it's kind of interesting to kind of peer into the opposite side of what's going on in the maintenance side of it, and how they're trying to tell these clients of theirs, which is these auto tech people, don't buy any equipment just yet, but this is what we see is going to happen. You're going to be making $1,000 days, doing, 8 or 10 Teslas, fixing their batteries because they've got fear of not, going the distance. Right. So I don't know. I found it was informative for sure. I found it kind of shocking information, stuff I didn't know. And anyways, I just wanted to share that. I thought that was really interesting. The mindset of the front end sales versus the back end tech. So.
Yeah.
Take it away, Jim.
All right. And for my stories from the CPA Practical Advisor, they had conducted a early 2024 survey of small businesses, and they found that 3 in 4 family businesses expect growth this year. The small business, the family-owned business, continues to be the backbone of the American entrepreneurship, really driving growth, and also to really kind of helping drive the economic engine, let's say, here in America. But there are a lot of challenges. We have high interest rates. The Fed did not cut the rate. It's expected that the Fed might cut the rate right before, I would say in September, October, I think is around that next time frame. We have the election coming up. They might cut it a quarter, maybe then. But we also just seen job reports where it's flat. It looks like April has been a flat month for hiring and everything like that. But again, the small business, the family-owned business is doing very strong. So congratulations to everyone who's a small business owner out there who runs a family business as well. You're doing very good, and we appreciate it.
Good article. And let's go to your next one, demystifying AI.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of it's still family business, kind of small business related. So
this one is from sci-fi.com. It's in science fiction, but this particular publication deals a lot in artificial intelligence, digital transformation, and everything like that. What the article went into is that there are a lot of things that small businesses can utilize AI applications to help them out. And I'll just cover a couple of these. The first is in the CRM, the customer relationship management. There are a lot of AI-based systems out there that are very affordable for small businesses to utilize. CRM that has a little bit of AI built into it, and how the AI can really help out is analyzing customer behaviors, what they're buying. Think of like what Amazon does when you buy stuff and it recommends stuff. These features are now available for small businesses through third-party entities. It could also send out messages, marketing, all that kind of good stuff like that. The second area is in chatbots and virtual assistants. And chatbots are going to help you with conversations. I'll be shortly creating for my Pro Coat Tech LLC company a GoDaddy website. And with the GoDaddy, they have a chatbot you can actually add into it for helping people navigate your website. Maybe if they have a buying site, they can purchase stuff, and the chatbot can really help them answer questions and things like that. And then virtual assistants. The virtual assistants are very cool because what they can do is they can really kind of personalize a lot of interaction that you have with your existing customers or prospects. And these things are available, both chatbots and virtual assistants are available 24/7, 365. They don't take a holiday. They don't need vacation. And all you do is you're just basically paying for the service. And the nice thing is third parties can provide this, so you don't have to worry about investing a lot of infrastructure. And then the last thing I'll cover is data analytics and also predictive modeling. Data, if you can analyze the data you have, we were talking earlier where Google, primarily when you think of Google, you can search things, you can, they have a Pixel phone, all that kind of stuff, but they are data brokers. They are collecting huge amounts of data on each and every one of us, and they are leveraging that both internally for themselves, and then some of it they will obviously monetize it and offer it out there. Well, you can do the same type of thing where you can actually take the data, analyze it, and be able to make sure that you have just-in-time stock inventory. Maybe your certain trends that you're not seeing, the AI will catch it ahead of time, saying this is a particular hot part of your business coming up. And then also to marketing campaigns and optimizing return on investments when it comes to certain type of investments that you might be doing within your business. And that's it on that right there.
Well, I would like to comment on that last one because the same question kind of came up during powder coating week. That was one question, that how AI is going to affect your business at the end of the show. And we got a kind of a wide variety. I talked about it in an episode I'm going to drop next week, or actually will be out by the time this is published. And it basically, people were just raising their hands and saying, customer relation management is going to be definitely a hot topic and probably implemented pretty quickly. Social media for sure.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. But I thought, what is the most hardest paperwork? Think about paperwork, right? And administration costs and production and managing paper and stuff on human resources, right? Your HR department could definitely use an upgrade with AI. So I'm interested to see how it'll unfold as small businesses and major corporations start to use it in their HR departments, because I could definitely see a lot of people bogged down with paperwork in those departments, and it would be really neat to see how that kind of unfolds here and who's going to go first, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Espo's powder was written about in 2010, which back in 2010, you got to remember, social media was just kind of getting started for businesses, but he had acquired over 20,000 followers on his Instagram, which I guess at the time was phenomenal, right?
It would be, yeah.
I'm still struggling trying to get 2,000, but I'm in a smaller area than Tom, right? And Tom is based out of New York. At the time he was. Now he's over in New Jersey. He's found a new home. He's expanded his business, and it's just so wonderful. This kid, when in 2010, he's not a kid anymore, but like Tom was, well, I call him Espo because that's, it's a short name, is Esposito. So I just want to make sure I spell his, pronounce his name. But he was, he was one of the first custom coaters to ever be written about in a magazine, an industry magazine. So I just want to give a shout out to Tom. I've always wanted to have him on the show. I'm sure he's got a lot to say. He's kind of a quiet guy, to be honest with you, but the article was the first article that really inspired me to do powder coating and to be successful on social media, because at the time it was really awkward to be on Instagram and try to find an audience. Who is defining your audience. This article inspired me to do what I am, and here I am today. So I just like to give a shout out to Tom on that. And that's why I want to have Tom on the show at some point, but
it makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, nice to see his growth over the years.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it with custom coating, what you're doing is it's visually pleasing, it's aesthetics and everything like that. And it's perfect for social media because, that's what people want to see. They want to see those cool looking rims for their car, or some of the unique powder coating applications that you and Ross do, that you make anything from a metal chair that maybe their grandparents gave them, that they've had in the family since the 50s and 60s.
Well, the thing is, back then, Tom was just doing rims for years.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, probably because of the article and his name just got around and around and around, he started doing architectural projects and structural stuff. So like you saw in some of those pictures, he's doing like big stuff now.
Yeah.
And for years, he was just in strictly automotive. And that's what caused the move to New Jersey, was to do more and become more of a versatile shop than one that was just centered around automotive enthusiasts. Yeah. So it's always good to see someone growing in the news, I guess, and stuff. So I'm just a shout out to Tom. He continues to inspire me, and I know he's not going to go, I'm not that person, because I've had a few conversations with him on social media, and he's not that kind of guy. But he's making these accomplishments, whether you have 20,000 followers or 2,000 or whatever. He's just got his head down and he's just doing him, right? And that's the heart of custom coating, right? You just do you.
Exactly. Be yourself, and that will really show to everyone. And that's why people are attracted to that. That's why people want to do business with someone like him, and also too with you and Ross.
Yeah, and why we're doing the powder coating live shows with the 6 coaters.
I love that.
Yeah, and we can continue to have rotation. I'm going to add more coaters as we go. So you're not going to hear the same people talk over and over and again. It's going to be a rotation of guys whenever they're available.
Yeah, I like the diversity you have it. What I mean by diversity, I'm talking about different type of businesses. For example, you had Mario on, who works more for a higher end, not a higher end, but more of a heavy production type of a coater
line system. Mm-hmm.
I think that is awesome to have on there, because a lot of times people like myself, I'm not exposed to the custom coating side. I'm more closer to what Mario did when it came to powder coating. So I understand what he's talking about with productions and all this other stuff, but also too, I fail to realize that custom coaters go through the same thing that the main line, the big long lines do when we're doing maybe the heavy industrial or they're doing other type of products. Yeah. Custom coaters go through the same thing, just in a different format and variation,
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think we could actually add in more line guys, and we could do a line show only, there's so many ways that this powder coating live can take off. And I'm really grateful for you for supporting the show. I'm so happy to do this in the news. I really like it. I'm getting better at it. Yeah. It's not easy to do.
Well, we got great supporters out there, and I think that's what makes the difference.
Yeah. So thanks so much for joining us today. It's a good time to call it quits. It's about an hour in on the show, and have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
Goodbye,
Aloha. Thanks for joining us on this month's show. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Powder Coater Podcast wherever you listen, or head on over to rosscoat.com. Jim and I will be back next time with a whole nother lineup of interesting news articles to share with you, so you can stay in the know.